On a dark winter evening, I was rushing home from the school. I lived in the countryside and had to go pretty far from the bus station. When I was walking home, I remembered that I had some candy left in my right pocket. I took it out and I can see that it was a little red and white candy cane. For one particular reason, it reminded me of that eerie clown from my friend's birthday party. Chills ran down my spine, although my dad had told me not to be afraid of clowns. There is no reason for me to be afraid now, I thought, while I was walking home alone in the total darkness. I tried not to think about the clown, but I couldn't forget him anymore because this clown was living somewhere in my town, but I didn't know exactly where. A random encounter with this clown was really possible. Everyone said he was always wearing his clown outfit and never took it off. He also had a clown mask and no one knew who he really was, but most people liked the positive vibe of the cheerful clown, so people thought nothing of it, although he seemed a little bit weird at times. Unlike everyone else, I despised that clown. He was so over the top that it made me sick. I was thinking about that particular reason why the candy cane had reminded me of him. I had taken it from the clown when we were celebrating my friend's birthday party and I regretted this action. What if he was still angry with me? What would he do if people offended him? I once heard a strange rumor of a kid who had kicked him. The clown had visited this kid that night. He had been knocking on his window until the kid yelled out for his parents and they ended up calling the police. Once the police had arrived, the clown was already gone and no one really knew if it was him. Only the kid had seen him, but the kid's parents had barely heard the frightening knock on the window. After this event, the kid started to spread the rumors, but no one really believed such a crazy story, except me. I believed him for sure. My sixth sense had started tingling. The kid was at home with his parents, but I wasn't. I was completely alone on this dark road. I started to walk faster and kept looking over my shoulder because I was certain someone was following me. Then I stopped. I looked around me, but no one was there. Suddenly, I heard the rustle of the old dried leaves. I stared in the direction until I saw something was really moving there. I started to run. Then I looked back at the same spot, and to my relief, it was just an ordinary bird reaching for the sky. After this, I caught my breath and continued on my way home, but my nerves were on the edge. I unwrapped the candy cane and put it in my mouth. My hope was that it would calm me, but the candy cane was too sweet. It was too much, just as clowns are. I spat out the candy cane and inhaled the cold winter air. That helped more. The first house of my town started to appear in the distance. I can see a street lamp above the house and it looked very eerie. As I walked under this lamp, it suddenly started to flicker, just as you see in the horror movies. It made me jump and take a few steps back. With a wide curve, I walked around this house until more buildings appeared. I came across some other house which had two massive dogs laying outside. They were sleeping, but as I walked past the dogs, they suddenly woke and ran to the fence while barking loudly. It scared me so much that I had lost my balance and fell backwards. I sat there for a few seconds looking at the dogs barking angrily at me. Then I regained my footing and shook it off. After that, I started to walk away from the dogs. A few steps later, I looked back at them and could see that they were retreating into their sleeping position. Finally, I was able to see my house in the distance. Also, the street had a better illumination here, and this logical fear left me in my thoughts. I can see the light in our window and figured that my dad was already home. The key to the front door was in my back pocket and I pulled it out while running to the entrance. I put the key in the keyhole and twisted it, opened the crackling and screeching door. The smell of my sweet home reached my nostrils, but then I saw something which immediately made my fear come back. Strange shoes were left across the hallway. They were clown shoes. There was also something red which looked like blood. I didn't know what to do. Should I run and stay and look for my dad? After pondering for a few seconds, I decided to look for my dad. I looked in the living room first and then in the kitchen, but they were empty. No dad. All the rooms upstairs were empty too. Then I suddenly remembered that we had an attic in which no one was allowed to go in. Usually it was locked with a big sturdy padlock, but this time the padlock that used to hang from the ceiling was laying on the floor, and the door was wide open. Somehow I felt that my dad was up there. I overcame my fear and went through that door. The sight I saw was simply pure terror. There was a human head on the floor, blood flowing from the neck. In the candlelight, I can almost see the whole attic floor was red from all the blood. It was thick, slippery, and I can smell the metallic scent. You probably think that this head was of my dad's, but it wasn't. It was a head of the little kid who had been spreading the rumors about the clown. Further into the dark, I can see a silhouette. It was a clown. From the sounds I can hear, I understood that he was busy with spitting out the rest of the kid's body. Cracking and popping of bones and guts hitting the floor made me throw up. I was completely petrified out of fear and couldn't move. The killer clown noticed my arrival and turned around. He looked straight into my eyes. I couldn't move, so I couldn't look away either. He still had his clown mask on, but something in his eyes seemed very familiar. He came closer and closer until he leaned over me and whispered in my ear.
I should have taught you earlier that you shouldn't be rude to clowns. They are human beings too, after all. I know that you still remember your friend's birthday party. Was that candy cane you stole from me good? I hope it was, because that might have been your last. And I'm gonna teach you a lesson for what happens to naughty kids, son.
The clown took off his mask, and I was looking at my dad's face. I was about 11 years old and was with my sister and her friends. They were all around 16 years old and were taking me trick-or-treating. We were going door to door to get candy and playing with silly string. I kept getting this weird feeling like I was looking behind me constantly and had no clue why. Around 9:30 p.m., I turned around quickly and there was a guy dressed up as a clown about 2 yards behind us. I wasn't really scared about this because I like clowns, and since this was the first time I saw him, I figured that he was just trick-or-treating. But he followed us for another hour, never getting candy, and waiting for us at each house we stopped at. At this point, I was stressing. I told my sister about the clown. She decided that we would try a completely different route and see if he still follows us. So we all crossed the street and he followed us. My sister absolutely hates clowns and was freaked out, so she called our dad to pick us up. We continued walking for another 30 minutes until our dad called us saying where he was parked. We all started walking fast towards the direction of my dad's car, but that's when the clown ran in front of us, trying to corner us. I think he knew that we were trying to leave. My sister and her friend were freaking out on me. Being an outspoken kid, I yelled at the clown to leave us alone. I remember that he tilted his head to the side when I said that, kind of like a confused dog. I grabbed my sister's silly string and told the clown that if he didn't leave us alone, I'd ruin his outfit with the silly string. Again, I was still young, so I thought this would actually do something. I actually thought that he would be scared of silly string. The clown didn't back off, so I stringed him all over his mask and costume. While I did this, my sister called our dad again, telling him to hurry up. The clown struggled to get the string off his mask so he could see, but we were already running. My dad came around the corner and we were all rushed inside the car. The clown caught up with us, trying to open the door, but the door was locked. As my dad hit the gas, the clown slammed his hands on the back window. I remember watching him out the back window trying to chase us, but failing. I never figured out what was up with that clown, but there were other reports of a clown with the same description following other kids in the area. I'm just glad I was with my older sister, or who knows what would have happened that night. One Friday afternoon, my parents had asked me to babysit my 8-year-old cousin Ruby. I was kind of upset over this because all my friends were going to a high school party that was literally 15 minutes away from my house. But at the same time, I didn't want to let my parents down because my dad was so close to getting his promotion, and that night they had been invited over to his boss's house for dinner. As they walked out the door, I began waving goodbye to both my parents and to the only hope I had of going to that party. Ruby and I sat on the couch and began watching Disney movies. At around 9 o'clock, I began seeing all my friends post Snapchats of them heading to the party. I was full of jealousy because they were about to have fun while I was stuck hanging out with the little kid. I sat there thinking, what if I sneak out for 15 minutes? I don't think Ruby would even notice that I'm not here. And I know what you're all thinking, how stupid can I be to let a child home alone? But let's not forget that I was young, and in all reality, my selfishness took the most out of me. I played another movie and told my cousin that I would be walking to the store to get us more snacks, and that I wouldn't be gone for too long. She agreed, and I began walking to the party. As I began walking down the empty street, I got this feeling that I was gonna end up regretting it going to the party, but I continued walking anyway. A couple minutes later, I can hear a laugh coming from behind me. I looked behind me, but the noise stopped and I couldn't see anyone, so I continued walking. Seconds later, I heard the laugh again. Only this time, I looked over and I can see a red balloon in the middle of the street. I began to panic. Whoever was playing this joke on me was doing a great job at scaring me. I began speed walking until I approached a crosswalk that prevented me from crossing. I could feel my heart racing and my legs shaking, when suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned my head to be in absolute terror. Standing in front of me was a clown. He was about 6 feet tall and had a full-body rainbow suit with a colorful tie. He had red lips and of course a large red nose. He began smiling at me when suddenly he began grabbing me by the shoulders. I can feel myself not breathing. My first instinct was to start kicking. I surprisingly managed to get away and I began running. I began running back home because all I can think of was about Ruby and how I left her home alone. As I was about to approach my street, I turned back and I can see the clown skipping. He wasn't even chasing me. It felt like he was just taunting me. I continued running until I approached the front of the house. I ran inside and locked the door. I can see the confusion on Ruby's face. She asked, "What's wrong?" But before I could answer, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Their operator told me that they would send the police to inspect the area and see if they can find anyone that matched the description of a clown. When my parents came home, I explained the situation and they were in absolute terror. After a long night talking to both my parents and Ruby's parents, I was off to bed. I laid in bed thinking what could have happened if I didn't get away, and all I can remember was this creepy face. The next morning, I woke up feeling relieved that the clown didn't show up to my doorstep. I turned on the TV hoping to forget about last night when suddenly all of that came to a pause. There was a live broadcast of my town. Turns out a young teen was on his way to a party but never showed up. A witness claimed that the last time he saw the teen, he saw a clown in the middle of the street.